This was not a difficult project to do, but a difficult project to decide on, because this is a band that has grown out of one of Tim Burns' bands, and has been growing steadily as its own band for the last 4 years. And I was very torn by, originally when I was going to do a record for ECM, when I first started when Manfred and I first started to speak again about making a record, it was primarily about making an orchestral record, for a kind of odd orchestral record for the new series. That's how the relationship restarted. And that conversation began at a time, Manfred Eicher is the El Jefe of ECM. But concurrent with that conversation was just around the beginning of when this band started to really play a little bit more regularly. Tim Byrne had been just literally kicking my ass to actually get out of the studio and start really playing in front of people again, and not just doing sessions as a studio guitarist and not just writing music for films, but, you know, like playing, go out and play. And so a typical conversation with Manfred Eicher about a project is a long-term conversation. It's whatever you decide is not going to happen in a month or 6 months, or in many cases even a year. So time passed by, and I was quite comfortable with that. And the band is starting to sound like, feel more than sound, starting to feel really like a band to me. And maybe for the first time since, I don't even know when I really felt like I was in a band last before this. And then I heard some live tapes and thought, wow. And then I started like playing around with some live tapes, doctoring them in the studio, pure live two-track tapes. I mixed one piece or two pieces for Tim and the band to hear, kind of doctored them, not just like minor edits and a lot of sonic treatment, because the sound quality started out as terrible. And the guys were like, Tim was really, so we got to do this. We have to do this. And then conversation is going on simultaneously with Manfred Eicher, and I finally said, well, you know what? I'm in this improvising band. Why don't we record this? You know, why don't we do this? And he acceded. He was well into it. He wanted to hear some stuff, so I sent him. I actually sent him the entire. I took this one live gig, turned it into a record, the band's first record, sent it to Manfred and said, well, this is kind of where, this is what the band sounds like, but I want to do my studio and composerly thing with this material, or material like this that we record fresh for that purpose. And he approved it, and we continued to play gigs, and for some reason, this band, being in an improvising band is a really difficult thing. One, because people don't, on the face of it, the business does not respond very well to, quote, formless improvisation. There are all these associations that people make with free jazz and crazy music, and it's hard to market, I guess. The thing is that marks this band as so unusual for me is the fact that we have been playing relatively regularly, increasingly more regularly as every few months goes by, and now we're into absolutely one gig every month, as long as at least 3 of the members are available. What's marked the band is that we've actually developed a vocabulary, and it's not free jazz. I know it's not rock. I know it's not free jazz. In fact, I know it's not jazz in the classical sense, right? In the old idiomatic, this is what we teach in school sense. For some reason, the band has a resonance between the members. Every member's ability to either freely mix musical idioms and or be so, how do you say this, so strong, an individual player on their own, idiomatically, that, I don't know, there's just this resonance. We built a vocabulary. It keeps building. It keeps changing all the time. But there is a vocabulary, and it's very, I like a lot, improvising is a dangerous game, and I quite like a lot of the really bad moments that this band plays. And that is not true of many, many other improvising bands that I've been in, and I've been in quite a few. So how it transitioned into a studio record was that I very much wanted this to sound like a record, and I wanted a little bit more of the producerly control over the sounds, knowing that I'd be giving up some of the vivacity of playing live in front of an audience. And I have this live record that's done in the can that still sounds great to me. So, and I wanted the option to do some of my more, what people now think of as remixing techniques in the studio with some of the improvised material that we used in the studio. Later on, that transitioned into, I want to add this piece that I had done a few years ago and doctor it and put Tom into it from the studio sessions and stuff like that. But that's pretty much how it went down. I think that, we have a hard time with labels. I used the word avant-garde. I didn't really mean it because I don't really believe that there is any kind of vertical movement in I don't think that labels really describe the reality of vertical movements in the arts. Every time you make a label for an idiom, it creates a sort of a stopping point, a vertical movement. And I believe that most things that actually seed the growth of arts are part of the fabric of our everyday lives. And by the same token, if we talk about labels like that I brought up, like avant-garde, I do believe you're correct. I think that the actual edges of, out at the outer edges of what's currently possible musically is what's affecting what you hear in 10 years. God knows that the effect that people like Ornette and Don Cherry and John Coltrane and the most adventurous of Miles Davis music, God knows, we can look at that very clearly and say, oh my God, a more extreme example would be Schoenberg. I mean, I don't think there is any film music without Arnold Schoenberg, and yet no one listens to his music, or very few people do. Not no one. I mean, how many people are familiar with the clavier work? It's like, but is there film music, modern film music, without Schoenberg? Especially music from thriller and horror genres? No. And the effect that he had on other composers, even though, so yes, quick answer, yes, absolutely.